Okay, so the theme for this video is going to be the website TripAdvisor. Um, I have used TripAdvisor a number of times, so I've got some context to work with in terms of speaking about the subject. Um, if you're not familiar with TripAdvisor, basically it's a sort of website whereby consumers, people who have bought a purchase from a restaurant or a hotel or another sort of public service venue, can basically give feedback and rate that venue. Most commonly, it's restaurants, hotels, but I think there's a few other entertainment facilities sometimes, cinemas, and so forth and so on. Now, this website has attracted some criticism, primarily from business owners, because they say it's basically a free for all. People can go in and rubbish their business, and it's unfair from that point of view. This is something I've contemplated a little bit. I can definitely understand why they would have concerns about it because although the website does have rules, they say that what you say has to be 100% true, and they will suspend accounts of people who are not telling the truth. Um, in reality, it would be quite difficult to really decipher an honest report and honest feedback from someone who's just basically trying to cause trouble. I mean, if someone writes something in a particular way, then I think they can maybe show themselves for what they're really trying to do. But if they're writing an honest and sincere feedback, then the thing is, businesses have a right of response. So it's not a case that people are just talking about their business and they can't say anything. They can also reply directly to the criticism. So let's say someone has stayed in a hotel and they're very unhappy about the experience. Maybe they feel they've been overcharged, or they feel the room was unclean, or whatever it is. Um, I have seen, for example, in the venues that I've given feedback to, the owners have responded, and a lot of the time they're very reasonable. They say things like, "We're very sorry you had a bad experience," and maybe they go on to explain why the situation was the way it was. Maybe there was something going on at the time. Maybe they had a particular policy, or maybe the traveller or customer was expecting more than what they candidly offered in the first place. I have seen people writing very negative feedbacks, um, which have been a bit unfair because, for example, I stayed in a hostel in London. Now, hostels by nature are very, very basic. That's why they're so cheap. Where I stayed, I think, was £9 a night, which is extremely cheap by London standards. But there were people complaining about it being very far from a tube station. It wasn't true. It was only 10 minutes from the tube station, and it was a straight road to that tube station. So I thought some of the criticism was unfair. The feedback I've given, I've always tried to be objective. Where I have been unhappy, I've been honest about it, but I've also tried to weigh that up with fair praise as well, where I feel I have got things right. I I do think that there should be a forum for consumers because if you have a situation where a business genuinely is ripping off customers, if they're overcharging, if they're not um, providing a service that amounts to the price that they're charging, I think it is fair that people know that so that they have some warning before they waste their money. Because this isn't just for people to get feedback, it's also for others to look at reviews and maybe get a second opinion on something if they're unsure about where to stay somewhere. Because the fact is, there are businesses out there who don't care much about their clients, who don't care much about their customers. Um, I've been in businesses where I wanted to write a review because I felt very frustrated and I was disappointed to find that it wasn't there. People can create a review. They can create, like, put in the business photo, name the business, the address, and write a review about it. So yeah, I sort of see both sides. If I was a business person, it would give me some cause for concern. But the way I view it is, if you're a good business, then the majority of people are going to give positive feedback anyway, because people generally are not assholes. Most people are decent enough to be honest about these things. Um, And if one person does give a negative review, they tend to be isolated cases. And I don't think if you're reading, let's say, 10 reviews, 8 or 9 of them are positive and one is negative, I think people are still going to go to your business. So I don't think it's enough to put people off. There was actually a high profile case a while back where I think it was Dublin, but I'm not 100% sure. There was, I believe, a coffee shop owner, and what happened was some people had left without paying, but it was an honest mistake, at least from their point of view, it was an honest mistake. And after he sent an email threatening to go to the police about it, they came back, they apologised. Now, this could have been a case that they're only doing that because they got caught out, or it could be a case it was a sincere, honest mistake. I've been in situations where I've been temporarily distracted and I walked out of the shop and then got embarrassed and immediately went back because I realised I hadn't paid. These things happen. We're not robots. We can make mistakes like this. Anyway, the point was initially people sympathised with the owner. This is say, okay, well done, the man's defending his business. He's calling these people out. But then he started going over the top and he started really basically slagging them off online and slagging off and denouncing anyone who defended them. And personally, I thought the guy had a pretty bad attitude. Um, Business people need to understand that how they correspond with individual customers can have a reflection on the rest of their customers. So if you treat one customer with contempt, that's going to have a reverberated effect. Um, and it's not good. Having said that, like I said, I do understand if you get someone who's just being malicious and they're being really, really picky for the sake of it, and they're just being, the sort of people who will complain at anything, then I can understand why businesses might be a bit wary of this side. But if I was a business person, what I would say is it's not entirely negative. It could also be good for business. Because if you are being honest and sincere, people give you the feedback and it's positive feedback, that's going to be good for your business. Because people go think, oh well, those people have had a good experience, let's give it a shot. Um so overall I think it's not a bad thing. I think like anything it can be misused. Although they do have ostensibly strict rules in place that if people continuously give misleading reports and so on, then their account will be suspended. I accept that that's hard to really monitor because I mean, opinion is opinion. It'd be difficult for the site to say, "Oh, you're lying about that," when it is presented as an opinion. That's um. Let me know your thoughts. Have you used TripAdvisor? Are you a business person who doesn't like it? Let me know why. I'm willing to hear both points of view. I do think it is overall a good thing because I think consumers have to have a voice. And without sites like TripAdvisor, how can they have a voice? I can't think of any other way. Because if they just complain to the business, without sites like TripAdvisor, the business in theory could just not care and just basically treat them with contempt. If you're offering a public service, you obviously have to put the public first. The public, for their part, have to be reasonable, and some people just are whiny and they just like to complain about everything. So it's also about public responsibility, consumer responsibility, being reasonable. Um, in other words, if you're paying £9 for a hostel, don't expect the Waldorf Astoria. That's a reasonable position. Um, should certainly expect the basics, but it is the basics that you're paying for. So yeah, it all comes down to common sense, really. I think consumers do need a voice. That is my stance on this, but I can understand why business people may be concerned about it. But I sort of take the view as long as you're being honest, if you are providing a good service, most people will be reasonable about that, and they will notice that. So if a lot of people are complaining about your business, they can't all be wrong. Um, it's not some sort of conspiracy to put you out of business. Maybe there is something going wrong, and maybe you need to take a bit of humility and actually reflect on some of the criticism rather than just getting defensive. Um, yeah, let me know your thoughts.